What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today I wanted to do a video kind of breaking down Lake Chickamauga during the April time period. I just did a video, the lake fishing report for Lake Chickamauga in April, and that was yesterday, and had a comment that pointed out, and rightfully so, that I didn't mention any areas. It wasn't because I was trying to hide anything, it's just because things are constantly changing, and so pointing out specific areas is very difficult right now. But there are some very, very good areas and key parts of the lake that are going to play a big role. So if you're coming to Lake Chickamauga and you're wanting a good place to start, I'm going to help you out with that and do this video. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be using our Navionics Boating app on my iPad. The reason I like the Navionics Boating app on the iPad instead of just using the free version on the computer is because I can actually use different overlays. Like for instance, I can go into map options and turn on Sonar chart shading, which gives us a really cool view of that. We've got relief shading, which is also a really cool view. I actually like this one a lot because there's a lot of contrast. And then we've got the brand new Sonar Imagery, which is also really cool. It shows you those areas that have the bottom hardness transition. So it's showing you the hard bottoms, the soft bottoms, and those are very, very key during this time of year. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to break down Lake Chickamauga, and you know what? I'm going to use this new Sonar Imagery feature because it's so cool to find those hard bottom areas. So I'm going to use it to kind of break down those areas where you're going to be looking for spawning fish. And if you watch that April fishing report, I'm talking about April being the month of the spawn. Well, actually, it's half of the spawn, because I really think that the height of the spawn is also that first week of May, when the water is almost all the way up, and when it gets all the way up, I really like that time period too for spawning fish. So let's get started. I'm going to start off on the very bottom end of the lake. So Lake Chickamauga really spreads out from all the way up near obviously the bottom of Watts Bar up there, all the way down to where it spills into Nickajack. And so we're going to start off on that lower end, just kind of breaking that down. And really, I don't have a ton to say about the lower end. The cool thing about this lake is that all these creeks and pockets, anytime you've got any of these creeks and pockets that are protected, you see where the crosshairs are pointed. That's what I'm going to be using during this whole video to kind of point out things. But any of these areas are going to be good for spawning fish. Some are going to be good, some are going to be better than others. It just depends on the population of fish that moves in there to spawn, the residential population. So this lower end, I'll be honest with you, from the dam all the way up to this curve right here, the turn over by Harrison Bay, I don't really fish that much during the spawn. Like I said, every single one of these pockets is going to have fish in it, but I don't generally tend to fish it that much during the spawn, just because there's not as much stuff to fish down here. I usually get kind of caught up in the other parts of the lake. So I would say that these are definitely areas down here from the dam up to what I call this S curve here. I call it the turn personally, but from the dam up to there, there's plenty of great opportunity to find fish. You just need to spend time to find them, but I would really just focus on all the pockets, all the creeks and pockets. That's where you're going to find the fish on the beds, and every single one of these creeks and pockets has really good hard bottom areas. There's a lot of rock down in this region of the lake, and there's a lot of suitable spawning cover. So don't be afraid to go down here. And the beautiful thing about the spawn is the fact that all those fish that are kind of spread out in the middle of the river channel and on this offshore structure in the current breaks, during the rest of the year, during the spawn, they all just kind of condense in the back of these pockets. So I can't really say anything bad about fishing the bottom half of the lake or the bottom third of the lake this time of year, but I don't fish it that often. So let's move up to kind of the mid-lake region of the lake, which I consider the strongest portion of the lake. And the reason why I think it's the strongest portion of the lake is because it has the most spawning habitat. You know, when I go to a new body of water, I like to focus on areas that have the most spawning habitat, the most suitable spawning contours and bottom composition. And here you can see Harrison Bay. You've got the Harrison Bay Islands right there in the center of Harrison Bay. And you've got all these big gradual sloping bays that create these really great spawning areas. And you can see on the sonar imagery that there is a lot, and the brighter yellow is the harder composition. So you got all this hard bottom that goes all the way around, and so you've got a lot of great spawning habitat. So I would consider Harrison Bay to be one of the best spawning bays in general on the lake. And that's the reason why it's so popular year-round, because fish just live in there. They can spawn in there. They can go out to the offshore, structure, such as, these points and shoals and things like that. There's all kinds of stuff for them to use throughout the year. Another really important part of this area is Wolf Teaver Creek here. The Wolf Teaver area is very good. I don't tend to fish it as much as a lot of guys do, but a lot of guys do extremely well fishing a Wolf Teaver. But really, it's just about covering water and finding those fish on the bed. But generally, I'm fishing the Harrison Bay area, which is this big area right here, and all the backwaters. This one right here is a pretty good backwater. There's stumps and a lot of hard bottom. Any of these big bays are going to produce right now. And then the other really key area on Lake Chickamauga, especially during when the fish first move up on the beds, is going to be in Chester Frost. Chester Frost is another just giant spawning bay. There's always fish that live in here, and it's just a really good area to catch fish. You can see, again, you've got all those hard bottom areas along the shoreline, gradual sloping contours, lots of great spawning habitat. You can't really see it on the sonar imagery here, but they probably, because they surveyed this when the water was low during winter pools, so they couldn't get back here. But all these little bays and pockets are going to hold fish, and really it just depends on what wave of fish has moved up. Are there just males on the bed right now, or have the females moved up? You've got to kind of do your legwork and go out there and figure out if the bigger fish are up, or if they'd moved off already or haven't made up to the bed yet and only bucks are there. So this region of the lake, all these areas are probably my favorite area. So if you were to pick one place to get started, it would be right here. This big area, Harrison Bay, Chester Frost area, and all of those offshooting pockets and creeks. Those are all great areas. And some of the things that I really key in on are stumps. A lot of areas, including Chester Frost, is loaded with stumps, and stumps are going to be a key piece of cover for these fish, because they really like to spawn around the stumps. They spawn around the stumps, the rocks, whatever they can find. They'll find a cinder block or a tire or something that they can build their bed against and be able to protect only a small area. So that's what I'm focusing on, is just any little feature along the shoreline in these spawning areas, but stumps are a surefire way to catch them. So let's go ahead and move up from there. All that area is really good. Still in the mid-lake. I still consider this, from Possum, Soddy Creek, and all the way down to the power plant, still what I consider mid-lake. Again, I hate to use general terms here, but these are all going to be really big players. You know, you just got to go in there and figure out which bays have the best, you know, wave of spawning activity. But they all play a big role. Another really good area is right here. You know, using this sonar imagery, you can see the areas that have the best spawning habitat because you see the vast areas of yellow. Back here, they call this Skull Island, and wow, I never even noticed that they've actually put the name on the Navionics app there. But yeah, this is called Skull Island. I just learned that, you know, probably last year. But Skull Island's got a lot of stumps and things back here, so I've caught a lot of spawners back there, and so any of these areas are going to play a big role. I tend to kind of stay on the main lake and fish the pockets off of the main lake for spawning fish, but a lot of guys, I'm going to try to make this in the center here, but a lot of guys also like to fish the creeks. I'm not as big on the creeks like Saudi Creek and Possum and then Sail Creek. I'm just not as big of a creek fisherman on this lake. I like to stay on the main lake and fish for those fish. But all those places are going to play a big role. And then as you move up, again, anytime you find a big major, you know, creek or bay, those are going to definitely play a big role. There's always a big population of fish that live in any of these creeks, and they'll go in there to spawn, and they'll come back out during the summertime in the post spawn and set up on the offshore structure here. And so those are really good places to target if you're kind of fishing this upper mid-lake portion. And then as we get up, we get into another key area of the lake, the upper portion, which features the Hiawassee River. This whole intersection of the Hiawassee and the Tennessee River is going to play a big role for spawners. So there's like some habitat, you know, bays back here that play a big role, that have a lot of spawning fish. You know, the places like this, they've got spawning fish. All of these bays are going to play a big role, but really it's all about the population of fish. And in this upper lake region, the intersection of the Hiawassee and the Tennessee River tends to have a lot of fish. So the population is good. And as you move up, I mean, Dayton is also very good. The creek that feeds into Dayton is a spectacular creek at times. You know, there's a lot of release fish here, and so, but it also gets a lot of pressure. But don't let pressure really deter you from fishing these areas. On Chickamauga, it's just, you know, these areas that do get a lot of pressure are still often the perennial producers. You know, you're going to catch a lot of fish back there. A major creek that we actually just bought property back here in this area back here. But this is Mud Creek. I haven't really spent a ton of time in Mud Creek. Theoretically, yes, the spawn should be really good here, but I haven't really fished there during the spawn. And one thing I need to mention about this upper portion of Chickamauga, you know, all these backwaters in the river portion, okay, this is what I consider the river portion. All these backwaters that you see here are great for shallow fishing. However, they're so shallow that right now, as the water's rising, you know, we're probably about 4 foot from full pool, summer pool. So the fish are, it's kind of unique on Chickamauga. The fish are going to spawn down here in this whole region of the lake. Really, it goes up to here in this region of the lake first. Okay, so from probably the Hiawassee down, this is where the fish are going to spawn first, because that's where the cover or the spawning areas are actually in the water. But once you get up here in these really shallow backwater areas, you can see that don't even have the sonar imagery. These are going to be so shallow that you have to wait until, you know, close to May for these to start playing a role, because a lot of them don't have enough water in them and they're really silty, so you get the middle of them are going to be silty, and the edges are where the suitable spawning habitat's going to be. So you got to wait until the water gets up into that spawning habitat. That's not all the backwaters back here. There's some that are deeper than others, and you just got to spend your time to look at them. You can see them on your Navionics app, which ones have the tighter lines. In here, you can see these kind of have a deeper channel. This one right here, Russell Branch. And so some of these, you know, like this one, this one, all these are going to have slightly deeper water, so you could hit them a little bit earlier. But just keep in mind that my experience has been that they spawn a lot earlier during this April time period down on the lower portion of the lake, and the upper portion starts playing a huge role during you know, the earlier part of May and time periods like that. So that is kind of the breakdown as far as the spawning areas for Lake Chickamauga right now in April. I really like to just tend to focus my efforts, like everybody else, down here in Chester Frost and Harrison Bay. That area right there is pretty darn solid, I'd have to say. And you can see that with the Sonar Imagery, we've got so much good spawning habitat, good hard bottom. Those are all great areas. But yeah, that's kind of how I break down the lake for the spawn. But keep in mind, that's not the only thing that's going on right now. You know, you're not only catching spawning fish, you're catching pre-spawn fish. You know, the water temps are definitely in the good spawning temperature range, 64, 65, 66. But there's still a lot of fish that are focusing on the main lake because there's so many good current breaks, and there's a lot of current right now because we had a lot of rain just recently within the last month, and I wouldn't bypass any of these shallow current break areas, any of these creek, you know, river turns and things like that. Anywhere that you've got a current break where the water's shallow and really close to these spawning areas, you know, you look at like a point like this, these areas can be real good, but anytime you've got a shallow current break that the fish use to you know, feed right now, they'll hold off. A lot of fish are going to hold off on spawning until they finally have had their fill and the water is all the way up and they want to move into spawn. So don't just focus on the spawning bite during April. I actually always thought that the best spawn was early May, like within the last foot of the rising water. So the last foot that they're rising the water to full pool, within that last foot of full pool, that's when I really start focusing on spawners. But right now you can definitely catch them, and you can also catch them on the main lake. And then all the way through, you know, the rest of the year, it's going to be main lake stuff too. So we will do another video kind of breaking down the lake in different seasons, but hopefully this helps. This is kind of the way that I break it down in April. I know it's still pretty vague. You got a lot of areas to choose from, but really if you stick with that Chester Frost, Harrison Bay region, and you really tend to focus on those and spend your time in that region, you're going to catch some fish during April. I mean, I can just guarantee that you're going to be putting yourself around the majority of the fish on the lake in that area. So anyways, hopefully this helps. Hopefully this kind of narrows things down for you. If you ended up liking this video, please hit that subscribe button. I'm trying to grow the channel so I can do more videos like this to help you catch more fish. And yeah, we've got some more tournaments coming up pretty soon. I've got the the MLF Pro Circuit coming up on Lake Murray, and then after that, qualified for the BPT on Travis, so you'll see me watching that down in Austin, Texas, and then finally Lake Eufaula, and then we've got the Lake Chickamauga Toyota Series. So I might go a little bit dark for you know, a week or two prior to the Toyota Series, fishing that one out here. I'm really excited about, but we've got a long string of tournaments coming up. So I'm not going to be home between the end of this week and when I get back for the Toyota Series. So hopefully you guys catch them up for me. But yeah, Again, hit that subscribe button, comment below if you have any questions or comments, and like the video if you like the video. All right, I'll see you guys out on the water. Take care.